The winter air in Tokyo was sharp, clean, and unforgiving, but it carried a strange softness that year, like it was keeping a secret of its own. No one noticed at first. Two figures, masked, dressed simply, moving through Narita Airport at different times, different gates, different flights. No entourage. No flashing cameras. No announcements. Just quiet footsteps and careful timing. It was intentional. Because some stories don't begin loudly. They begin by not being seen. Wang Yibo arrived first. Black coat. Baseball cap pulled low. Hands tucked into his pockets as if hiding not just from the cold, but from recognition. He didn't rush. He never did. He moved like someone who knew exactly where he was going, even if no one else knew why he was there. Xiao Zhan arrived hours later. Different terminal. Different disguise. Same winter silence clinging to his shoulders. He paused briefly near the glass doors, eyes scanning the snowfall outside. Not anxious, not nervous, just thoughtful, like someone stepping into a moment they'd replay later. They didn't meet at the airport. That would have been too obvious. Instead, the first intersection happened far from crowds, far from noise, far from anywhere a story was supposed to begin. It happened in a quiet Kyoto street. Snow drifted lazily between lantern-lit rooftops. The night was hushed, almost reverent. Xiao Zhan stood beneath a convenience store awning, warming his hands around a cup of coffee, breath fogging the air. Then, a familiar presence. Not announced. Not spoken. Just felt. He looked up. Wang Yibo stood across the street, unmoving, eyes steady, posture calm. The space between them felt charged, not with urgency, but with recognition. Like two people who had learned how to wait. Neither smiled at first. Because some smiles carry too much truth. Yibo crossed the street slowly. Snow crunched beneath his boots. Xiao Zhan watched every step, heart beating not faster, but deeper. "You're late," Xiao Zhan said quietly. "You're early," Yibo replied. A pause. Then laughter, soft, almost disbelieving. They walked side by side without touching, shoulders close enough to feel warmth, but far enough to maintain the fragile balance they'd perfected over years. This wasn't a trip. It was an escape. They stayed in different rooms. Entered and exited separately. Moved through cities like shadows that only existed when the light hit just right. But Japan has a way of revealing what people try to keep hidden. In a small ramen shop in Osaka, a local noticed something strange. Two men sat at the counter, not facing each other, but angled inward, knees almost brushing. When one spoke, the other leaned closer instinctively. When one laughed, the other's eyes softened first. No touching. No gestures. Just familiarity. The owner later said, they looked like people who had shared many winters. The first rumor appeared days later. A blurry photo. A reflection in a shop window. Two silhouettes walking beneath umbrellas in the snow. The caption was simple. "Am I seeing things?" Fans dismissed it at first. Too vague. Too coincidental. Too hopeful. But hope has a way of sharpening perception. Then came the second clue. A fan noticed Wang Yibo posted a photo, snow-covered street, vending machine glowing blue, no caption. Hours later, Xiao Zhan shared a photo, same glow, different angle, same night. The timestamps matched. So did the silence. The internet held its breath. In Hokkaido, they stood on a frozen overlook, the world stretched wide and white before them. No disguises here. No need. The cold kept people away. Yibo pulled his scarf higher against the wind. Xiao Zhan watched him struggle, then reached over, adjusting it wordlessly. "You always forget the wind," Xiao Zhan murmured. "And you always remember," Yibo replied. They stood there for a long time. Not talking. Not posing. Just existing. The kind of existence that doesn't need witnesses. That night, in a quiet ryokan, they sat on tatami mats, tea steaming gently between them. The room was warm, dimly lit, safe. "You didn't have to come," Xiao Zhan said softly. Yibo looked at him. Really looked. "I wanted to," he replied. Simple. Final. Honest. That was always how Yibo spoke, only when he meant it. The slow reveal didn't come from scandals or leaks. It came from patterns. Fans noticed Wang Yibo stopped posting nightlife photos. Xiao Zhan's captions grew quieter. Their playlists, separate accounts, began to echo the same moods. Melancholy, reflection, warmth beneath restraint. Someone spotted them in a bookstore in Tokyo. They stood in different aisles. But every few minutes, one would glance up, and the other would already be looking. A fan wrote later, anonymously. They didn't act like celebrities. They acted like people protecting something fragile. The most mind-blowing moment happened near the end of the trip. A snowfall heavier than expected forced trains to stop. Streets emptied. The world slowed. They walked through Shibuya late at night, masks off, blending into anonymity. Neon lights reflected off wet pavement. Xiao Zhan laughed at something Yibo said, head thrown back, unguarded. Yibo watched him like the moment was a photograph he wanted to keep. You know, Xiao Zhan said suddenly, people would say things if they saw us like this. Yibo didn't look away. They already do. And that doesn't bother you. It used to, Yibo admitted. Now, less. Why? Because this, he said quietly, gesturing between them, isn't loud. It doesn't need defending. They stopped at a crosswalk. Red light. They stood close, so close their sleeves brushed. Neither moved away. The light turned green. They walked on. Days later, they left Japan the same way they arrived. Separately. Quietly. But something had changed. Fans noticed. The rumors didn't scream anymore. They whispered with confidence. A blogger posted, if nothing happened, why does it feel like something settled? Because some journeys don't ignite. They confirm. Weeks later, during unrelated events, they appeared on different stages, different cities. But something was unmistakable. Calmer. Grounded. Certain. When asked about winter plans, Xiao Zhan smiled and said, it was peaceful. When Wang Yibo was asked what he wanted more of next year, he answered, time. No names. No explanations. But fans understood. Because this story had never been about public declarations. It was about shared silence. About timing. About choosing quiet over chaos. Japan didn't reveal them through proof. It revealed them through consistency. Two people who moved differently afterward. Like they had returned from somewhere important. Somewhere only they needed to know. And as the slow reveal continued, not in headlines, but in harmony, one thing became clear. This wasn't a secret trip. It was a chapter written softly. And like all the stories before it, it didn't end with confirmation. It ended with certainty. Because some connections don't ask to be believed. They simply continue. Steady, winter quiet, and unmistakably real. The reveal didn't come all at once. It never did with them. It came in fragments, like snow melting slowly in the palm, leaving behind only the certainty that warmth had been there. After Japan, everything felt altered. Not louder. Not bolder. Just steadier. Wang Yibo returned first, slipping back into schedules, rehearsals, interviews. He answered questions with his usual brevity, posture relaxed, expression unreadable. But those who watched closely noticed the difference immediately. He paused more before speaking. He listened longer. And when asked about winter, his gaze drifted, not upward, not outward, but inward. It was quiet, he said once. I liked that. No one pressed him. Because quiet, coming from Wang Yibo, was never empty. Xiao Zhan returned days later, moving through airports with the same calm precision, yet something in his smile had softened, rounded at the edges, like someone who had recently laughed without restraint. At a fan event, someone shouted, "Did you enjoy winter?" He laughed gently. Very much. That was all. But fans had learned something important by now. What they didn't say mattered more. Behind the scenes, the after-effects of Japan lingered like a private echo. In his apartment, Yibo unpacked slowly. A scarf folded carefully. A receipt tucked between book pages. A photo saved but never posted. Streetlights reflected on snow, a shadow just out of frame. He stared at it longer than necessary. Not because it was beautiful. Because it was familiar. Across the city, Xiao Zhan brewed tea and stared out his window, winter sunlight spilling across the floor. His phone buzzed once. A message. Snow here melted. He smiled. Typed back. It hasn't in my head. The reply came quickly. Same. That was how it continued. Not daily. Not dramatically. Just enough. Fans began noticing patterns again, not the frantic kind, but the kind that settle quietly into truth. When Xiao Zhan posted a photo of a handwritten lyric, someone noticed the melody matched a song Yibo had played weeks earlier during rehearsal break. When Yibo mentioned liking simple food lately, fans remembered a Kyoto meal, quiet, humble, warming. Coincidence? Maybe. But coincidence had stopped convincing anyone a long time ago. The most mind-blowing moment happened unexpectedly. During a charity event neither were supposed to attend together. Different schedules. Different entrances. Different seating. But fate, careless and patient, placed them within sight. Xiao Zhan noticed first. Yibo stood across the hall, speaking with someone, posture relaxed, hands clasped loosely in front of him. He looked up, felt something, and their eyes met. It wasn't a stare. It was recognition. A slight nod. Barely there. But Xiao Zhan's shoulders eased. And Yibo's expression softened just enough to be dangerous. They didn't speak that night. They didn't need to. Because later, hours later, when the event ended and the hall emptied, Yibo's phone buzzed. You look tired. Yibo smirked. You always notice. You always pretend not to care. A pause. Then. I care. No emojis. No qualifiers. Just truth, laid flat. The fandom shifted again after that. Not into chaos. Into calm certainty. Posts stopped asking if. They started asking when. Not when they'd confirm. But when they'd stop pretending this was accidental. Japan had done something irreversible. It had given them shared silence. And shared silence changes people. One late night, during rehearsals, Yibo sat alone in the studio, lights dimmed, music low. He replayed choreography absent-mindedly, movements precise but unhurried. He paused suddenly, pulled out his phone. If we went back, he typed, would you choose the same place? The response took longer this time. Then, I'd choose the same person. Yibo leaned back against the mirror, eyes closing briefly. That was the thing fans never saw. The quiet confirmations. The decisions made without witnesses. Xiao Zhan, meanwhile, found himself answering questions differently. When asked what kind of future he imagined, he said, one where I can disappear sometimes. The interviewer laughed. Disappear where? Xiao Zhan smiled. Somewhere cold. Somewhere honest. Fans didn't laugh. They remembered Japan. The slow reveal continued, not through leaks, but through alignment. Their schedules never overlapped publicly, yet their downtime always seemed to sync. Their moods mirrored. Their music choices echoed. Their words curved toward the same meanings. Then came winter's last whisper. A candid photo surfaced, not of them together, but of footprints in snow. Two sets. Side by side. Same stride length. The caption read, some paths are walked quietly. No denial followed. No clarification. And somehow, that silence confirmed everything. Because the story of Wang Yibo and Xiao Zhan had never been about spectacle. It had always been about restraint. About choosing privacy over performance. About letting connection exist without asking it to explain itself. Japan wasn't a secret because it was scandalous. It was secret because it was sacred. And as spring approached, fans noticed one final shift. Both men looked lighter. Not euphoric. Not reckless. Just grounded. Like people who had gone somewhere important and returned with less to prove. When Wang Yibo was asked what winter taught him, he answered that some things are better kept warm. When Xiao Zhan was asked what he hoped to protect most, he replied, what doesn't need noise. The rhyme was unmistakable. This story didn't end with a reveal. It settled into something quieter. A continuation without announcement. A journey without documentation. And for the fans who had learned how to listen between lines, it was more than enough. Because some truths don't arrive screaming. They arrive like snow. Soft, slow, undeniable. Covering everything until pretending otherwise becomes impossible.